Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 312 of the J Situation Podcast. I'm recording this on June 29th, 2026. How are all you wonderful folks doing? I hope you're doing well. We're here a day earlier than usual this week. So today we're going to present what is most likely one of the most interesting dichotomies we've ever witnessed in the research progression. We're going to do the technical deep dive of the Tuna Cans from last week. And then we're going to hit a quick introduction to today's report, which is the Strategic Sciences Multifunction Muzzle Device, or MFMD, which with its installed suppression device extended, or SDX, on 308 bolt action. So we're going to go from talking about relatively primitive silencer technology to probably what is some of the most advanced technology currently on the market that exists. So, and it's really cool is we've actually done a lot more strategic sciences testing than what is getting published today, and you're going to get all of it. But today, we're going to, start off with something pretty wild, just a teaser of how crazy this tech is. And I think it's a good intro to the technology, and boy, is there a lot to learn about it. So as we, move forward in this research progression with this crazy stuff, I mean, there's going to be little tidbits that come out of this that I think is just going to be really neat. And it's not so often we get to look at technologies like that. So, every time that we do, from whatever companies bring them to us, it's always a treat. And also, today is probably, I think it's going to be the last time I will speak with you before our country's 250th Independence Day celebration, right? On the 4th of July is coming up. So I would ask that all you stay safe and have fun, and cheers to the greatest country in the world. That's pretty awesome. Okay, let's get on with the show. If you've been here before, welcome back. If you're new to the podcast, oh man, talk about a good day to join us. And, glad to have you here. Coffee's in the back. And there are timestamps in the episode description to skip to wherever you would like. If you want to hang around with me a little bit longer, I'm going to talk about some really awesome companies that make this podcast possible every week. It's pretty cool. The first one is Legion Athletics. Did you know that nothing you do, exercise, sports, really anything is worth doing without consistency? You got to do things all the time if you want to be good at them, and Legion Athletics can help you with that. They got whey protein, pre-workout, post-workout, vitamins, minerals, creatine, all kinds of supplements. They don't have everything you need, but they do have a lot of it. Visit legionathletics.com. There's a link in the show notes, and you can use the code word PewScience to buy one, get one 50% off your entire shopping cart on your first order. And I think it's giving 10% cash back right now going forward. It used to be 20%, or first it was 10%, then it was 20%. And I think now it's back to 10. So whatever, use it, get money back. If you're buying a lot of supplements, it will help you. I know I actually personally use it because I do order supplements from Legion, and I do lift weights, and I do use them. Actually, some people ask me what some of my favorite things to use are. Staple is going to be creatine and the protein, but also they have some vitamins that I use too. So that's pretty much what I use, but and the pre-workout. Some folks use a lot more than that. Some folks use less. It's all about what you need. The podcast is also brought to you by Silencer Shop. Did you know that Silencer Shop has been in the game for quite a long time, and they have put forth a significant amount of effort to help the entire silencer industry, the consumers, the companies, tons of dealers, large and small, nationwide. If you are a new dealer looking to get started in the space, did you know they have a kiosk and do your fingerprints and photos electronically, cut down on errors, simplify your silencer purchasing process, get a money-back guarantee, which is huge. It's pretty good. It's just you and your silencer with no drama. Truly a silencer ownership simplified. And speaking of those dealers, large and small, nationwide that exist, Top Gun Range also sponsors this podcast. Did you know they're in Houston? And let's say you have a business trip going through Houston, and you got some time to kill. You tell your boss, you say, hey, can we go down to the 15-lane indoor range and check out the largest firearm rental fleet in the entire state of Texas? And your boss will say, they'll say, yes, of course we can. We can shoot pistols and rifles and shotguns and machine guns and put silencers on them and do all kinds of cool hood rat stuff with our friends and coworkers. Check them out at Top Gun Range. Also, Capital Armory, deep in the heart of Texas. I don't know if you've noticed a theme here. Capital Armory also sponsors this podcast. And did you know that they are NFA experts, not only in the paperwork and all that good stuff, but actually in the items they use? They're NFA enthusiasts, silencer enthusiasts. I've known a couple of these folks for a long time, just outside of Pew Science, just, for the love of the game type of stuff. And if you live in one of the 42 states where silencers are legal, let's say you work nights, you have a hard time getting to dealers and things like that, Capital Armory ship the dang things to your door. Ship them right to your house. All right. So if you're in one of those niche cases where the gun stores just don't work out for you, I don't know, man. Go talk to Capital Armory. Not only can they help you out with that, but just even if you don't buy anything from them, if you just want to talk about silencers with these guys, they'll actually speak with you from experience, which is really cool. There's not a lot of very large dealers out there that are true silencer people still, that from the old guard, and Capital Armor is one of them. So, don't lose that. Don't lose that history. They can help you out. They have a lot of good people there. Finally, this podcast is brought to you by the Pew Science Laboratory. I keep running this thing somehow, the technical director of the lab, and we keep doing this podcast because we believe in it. We believe in pushing the silencer industry forward one test at a time. We do believe it's important. Wouldn't be doing it if I didn't think it was. Okay, you can visit our website at pewscience.com for the suppression rating. It's the best way to quantify hearing safe for your suppressed small arms. True human inner ear response of the entire gunshot from before the combustion takes place all the way until all the combustion is gone, all the mechanical operation of the weapon system has ceased. 8 sections in the Silencer Sound Standard, the most in-depth and accurate silencer data analysis in the world, 24/7, pewscience.com. It's public. And if you want to support this effort and you want even more data and you want to be in on the ground floor of the best silencer data analysis in the world, 6 years running, join with a membership. Join our club. Be cool. All the cool kids are doing it. It's super cheap, less than a cup of coffee per month, and you get to support the greatest silencer research effort in the world. And you don't even have to do that if you don't want to. You can just throw us a bone with the donation every once in a while, tax deductible. Plus, if times are tight, you can just spread the word. Be like, hey, have you seen Pew Science? You should check it out. Give it a 5-star rating on all your podcast providers. Like and subscribe. All that stuff too. Let folks know that silencers and guns are awesome. Normalize the use of suppressed small arms. Tell your grandma. You know what I mean? All right. So we got 2 topics for you today. All right, we're going to hit the Tuna Cans in depth, both the 5.56 XL and the WRMFZY thing. We're going to hit technical dive through all of that. It's going to be subtopics A through F, all that good stuff, hazard map brief, all that stuff. Then topic 2, we're going to go intro to the strategic sciences stuff, which is nuts. It truly is insane for so many reasons. All right. All right. Topic 1, time 8 minutes and 15 seconds. All right. So we're going to do A through F, right? A, B, C, D, E, F, G. My kids are taller, so I'm just brushing their teeth just now before I started recording this. And we sing the alphabet when we brush our teeth. That way they know to brush it long enough. Topic 1, Sound Signature Review 6229. Tuna Cans 5.56 XL and WRMFZY 5.56 in the 14.5-inch M4. Okay, so we published this technical report last week, along with Hazard Map Brief 8.1.26. This is part of the new breed of economical silencer manufacturing that's really proliferating heavily in the market. Has for a couple of years, but this is kicking it in the high gear. These are traditional and conventional baffle designs, okay? And this was basically a case study in varying length and volumetric expansion with the same technology, and seeing that really performance didn't even change. Which is sometimes I think people gloss over, but it should blow your mind if you're just new to silencers, because if I had told you this 6 years ago before we started Pew Science, I'm telling you, most of the people in the industry would have called me a liar and laughed, because the prevailing wisdom was that these would be completely different. And now who's laughing? You know what I mean? Let's do the intro to this talk at subtopic A at 9 minutes and 54 seconds. So I mean, I don't mean to be cynical, and I'm kind of half kidding with some of that, but I would say I am sincerely happy that we could get these silencers done for you. And here's the thing: we did forecast that this would happen when the tax stamps dropped to zero, and tons of new silencer manufacturers entered the space. You know, there are always positives and negatives when a commercial market undergoes an expansion. You know, if you look at business worldwide and history, you know, the very interesting thing about the silencer space and market is that there are a lot of consumers who have firearms, but not nearly as many of them have silencers, right? So when you think about it that way, silencers are kind of sort of still a niche thing. And I say this every week during the ad reads I do for this podcast. One of the goals of Pew Science is to normalize the use of suppressed small arms. Like, that's not lip service, that's true. And the best way I know how to do that is to stay in my wheelhouse. You notice I like to stay in my lane. I don't really venture out. I like to stay in my lane and educate people about how silencers work. I don't think there can be any net negative that comes from educating a consumer base in an industry, like in general. I don't think there's ever a net negative. Short term, some industry parties might think it's negative. And clearly you've seen that publicly for the past 6 years. Short term, they thought this is negative. But over a long enough time horizon, it can only be a net positive. And I think you can use logic to deduce that. So I felt like this Tuna Cans work really hit multiple check boxes, at least from a philosophical perspective, because we're given the opportunity to showcase one of the many brand new manufacturers in the space, which just so happens to be a budget brand, a brand that's selling their products at a little over double what the tax stamps used to cost. So all things considered, that's a paradigm shift in pricing, like in a lot of people's eyes, not everywhere, but in a lot of people's eyes. And another box we were able to check is revisiting some basic silencer technology that many of you experienced a long time ago. And many of you folks with a lot of experience and you loyal listeners, you already understand it. But it's a technology that new folks in the silencer community might just be learning about. It might be new. And there's a saying in the silencer industry, and this probably rings true. Most silencer consumers are first-time silencer consumers. Okay? And I know that sounds weird, but that's a saying we have. And that's how niche of a sector it really is. And so what that means is many of you listening are brand new to silencers, which is really great. That's really great that you're here. So in this report, you got to see two silencers at once. And when you looked at them, boy, you look at both of them together, they look different, don't they? One is a screw-together modular, stainless steel, 12 baffle sections. You can make it really long or really short. And the other one is shorter and fatter. It's also stainless steel, but it's 3D printed, has some funny visual designs on the outside. Just looks a lot different. And so to the layman and to the new silencer consumer, and even to the technical experts who may not know what's inside the silencers, you might see these two things and you might wonder, how are they different? Why are they different? Should I even care? And so today, I'm going to answer two of those questions for you. And then I'm going to also help you answer the last question yourself. That last question is, should you care? Because remember, here at Pew Science, we don't recommend any silencers. We do not care what you buy. And we want to teach you how things work so that you can make your own decisions. And if you're looking for someone to tell you what to buy, to answer that question for you instead of help you answer it yourself, well, there are, of course, YouTubers out there that you can go watch. And those YouTubers get paid by the silencer companies and paid by the dealers who sell products to do exactly that, to tell you what to buy. That is their purpose. They don't tell you that's their purpose, but they tell the silencer companies that's their purpose, to tell you what to buy. So this is not that type of place. Pew Science is not that type of place. Okay, we're going to help you make your own decisions, like grown-ass men and women. All right? That's right. So let's talk about the silencers. In subtopic Bravo, at a time of 15 minutes and 11 seconds. I'm not going to coddle you. P-Science doesn't coddle you. We don't tell you what to buy. We believe we want you to be intelligent enough to figure that out on your own. Now, we can help you with advice, but we will never make the choice for you. So this is just a broad overview here in this subtopic. Two silencers, a 556 XL and the WRMFZY 556. We're going to talk about the 556 XL first. So it's what you call a tubeless modular baffle silencer. It's the official designation that I just made up, and that is true. These types of things started to get popular when Q made the Erector, which is a very light and modular 22 rimfire silencer. They were not the first people to do it. They don't hold a patent on it. But one of the first, it was probably one of the first mainstream examples of the concept. I would say it was probably the first mainstream example of the concept. And if you ever have the chance to check out a Q Erector 22 silencer, I do encourage you to do so. Some very interesting design and engineering went into that product to make it viable. I know the politics of their brand is very divisive, but from a pure technical engineering standpoint, the Erector 22 is extremely impressive. I just want to assure you of that. It is. And I say that objectively. It's very, very technically sound. And it's very well done in execution, I think. It's very light. Another modern example of this concept in recent history is the Dead Air Odessa 9. I'm very familiar with that silencer because I was actually one of the first consumers to buy one, as proven by the serial number I own. Bought on a Form 4 before I started the Pew Science Lab. And actually, what's funny enough, the Dead Air Odessa 9 is another example of a silencer that pushed me to start the lab, but that's a story for a different day. The Odessa is not as well thought out as the Erector, nor is the design as refined as the Erector from Q. But the Odessa 9 does do roughly what Dead Air wanted it to do. I'd say roughly. After the Odessa, there were a multitude of other similar products in concept that came about and came to market, and they're still on the market. I think I believe there's a company called Rexilentium that ended up making something. They might still do it. I think this Tuna Cans 556 XL is probably similar to that. Although I know Rexilentium uses a curved cone mill cut derivative of Rexilentium. I'm fairly certain uses a neutered omega baffle, like an omega baffle without the coax, annulus. Anyway, so what Tuna Cans has done here, they've taken a stainless steel bar stock, machined a 1.5 inch diameter blast chamber, which is just an empty tube, milled some wrench flats on it, threaded both ends, machined baffles that screw into the blast chamber and into themselves, and stacked them up to 12 with this model, and then you get the 556 XL. And if you're into manufacturing, just as an aside, that's an interesting technical tidbit for you. It does not appear that they wire EDM this bore. And because it's modular, you wouldn't think they would, right? Like, why would you? That'd be crazy. Because if you reconfigured it, the bore would be off. If you wire EDM'd it all the, if it was like put together in a 12 baffle configuration, so why would you EDM it? So instead, you basically want alignment to be good enough no matter which baffles you connect to each other, right? Just like the Q Erector, yes? So as long as your manufacturing's pretty solid, you should be able to manage alignment. Correct? You tracking with what I'm saying? So now go back and look at a Dead Air Odessa. They EDM'd it. The fact and that's only one thing about the Odessa that blows my mind. They EDM'd the damn bore. That's one of the most curious decisions I've ever seen in silencer manufacturing. It's just not good. And that just, not to harp on it, but it's very related to this modular silencer topic. So I think it's important to bring it up. So you take this 556 XL apart, you take the silencer apart, and you see that, yes, each baffle can be separated. The blast chamber can be separated, and the end cap can be separated. So when you're done, you'll have 14 parts, right? You're not counting the mount. So you have 15 parts of the mount. So all together, all in with the mount installed, this thing's 9.81 inches long. That's very long, but it has 12 baffles. It's also 29.5 ounces, so kind of heavy. But again, 12 baffles. Okay, 12 baffles. So I did the math on this, and it's in the report. Each time you remove a baffle, you remove half an inch of overall length, and you remove 1.6 ounces. So let's say you wanted this thing to be 7 inches long, thereabouts. So you would have to get rid of 2.81 inches. Half an inch doesn't really go into that number evenly. So if you remove 5 baffles, you'll get rid of 2.5 inches of length. And so now you're down to 7.31 inches with the mount. And you also removed, 5 times 1.6 ounces, so that's 8 ounces. So now you're down to 21.5 ounces. Okay, so you're down to RC2 metrics, roughly, give or take. Or maybe the RC2 is a little shorter, but you get my point. I can't remember. You get my point about what you can do with the silencer. So 556 XL, you can make it do whatever you want it to do. If you don't care about length and just want to shoot 556 through it on a bolt gun to sit on the bench and have some fun, maybe you do it with the 12 baffle configuration. Maybe you want to put it on your AR and be able to walk through a doorway. Maybe you remove half the baffle so it's not so long. The world is your oyster. So now what happens when you remove the baffles from the tuna can? Well, we'll go into that in the next subtopic technically, but when we talk about the actual design of the silencer. But for now, let me tell you now really quick about the WRMFZY 556. The WRMFZY. Now that thing looks different. Yeah, same stainless steel material. It's just 3D printed instead of traditionally subtractively manufactured, traditionally machined. It's 3D printed and then machined. So they increased the diameter from 1.5 inches to 1.85 inches. And they shrunk the length. Yeah, down from almost 10 inches to a little under 7. So now you're in that 7-inch range, but you're fatter and you're a little lighter at 24.2 ounces. Okay. Why would Tuna Cans offer both of these products? I don't know. It's more of a rhetorical question. I don't know. Maybe it's not a rhetorical. Maybe that's a real question. I don't know. I think probably I don't know, speaking freely, I think probably because some people like different things and they think they could sell both. I don't know. Now, physically, why would you choose one of these silencers over the other? Why? What's inside? Let's talk about that in subtopic Charlie and the silencer design. At a time of 23 minutes and 33 seconds. Okay. So you unscrew. Where's the damn thing? Here it is. I took it apart. I want to look at it. It's all weird. Not that weird. So you unscrew a baffle from the 556 XL, and you probably want to use what I did. You probably want to use a couple of open-ended wrenches or adjustable wrenches, whatever you have. Tuna Cans does not provide tools for this, to my knowledge, which makes sense given the price point. Wrench might cost half the damn silencer. When you remove a baffle and you look at it, you will see a typical and traditional straight cone with a notch in the baffle mouth. Probably one of the most common silencer baffle designs of the past couple decades that you can't patent because it's so common. So one of the reasons you see it, and another reason you see it is because it works decently well at what it's supposed to do. Now, there's a slight modification that they made to it, which is machined ribbing of the baffle surface. They just they took the flat cone part and they machined steps on it, essentially, fine steps. This it increases the surface area increases effective surface roughness in a gross sense, as viewed by the gases, and does increase the efficiency of heat transfer and thus the efficiency of sound signature suppression. There is a method to the madness there. And by the way, not to gloss over the fact that it increases the efficiency of heat transfer, it's because it does so by increasing turbulence and surface area simultaneously. Turbulence directly increases the efficiency of heat transfer in this combustion regime and flow regime. So there's a method to the madness of why they made that tweak, and their internal testing showed it was quieter when they did that, and I believe them. And why wouldn't they have made it? Because frankly, it's an extra machining step, which is a pain in the butt. And at a price point like this, you want to keep that machining down because they want their machines just running to keep cranking out these baffles. So why would they do more if they didn't need to? Just like one of those like Occam's razor type conclusions for you. All that being said, by and large, this is basically straight and notch cones. So full configuration, there's 12 of them. They are the same from first to last, from blast baffle to last baffle. The end cap is also completely featureless inside. There's no inner recessed flange, nothing. It's just a flat plate. I'm giving you these details because I really want you to know what this silencer does, as it is. The more you study the internals of silencers, the more you'll appreciate this. This one, it's really one of the simplest rifle silencers you can make. I say one of because there's even simpler ones. And there's books on this that you can read about from the early days, from the before times. Simplest rifle silencer, one of the simplest rifle silencers you can make. And with 12 baffles, as you saw in the report, you can trap a ton of gas and you can ramp up signature suppression in a gross sense. You really can. But you're also almost 10 inches long, so there's that. And what's another thing that happens due to this design? Well, back pressure is really high. And that's not something you can get away from. And that's partly due to the number of baffles. Sure, yes, of course. But it's mainly due to the design of the silencer. The blast loads reflect right off of that blast baffle and they move right back down your barrel, traveling at Mach Jesus through the pre-compressed superheated gas. And that impulse builds internally. And it's back pressure town, USA, population U, and you're going to be staying a while. So you think to yourself, well, I'll just remove some baffles. I know what to do, Jay. I learned enough about physics from your podcast. I know what I'll do. I'll just remove some baffles. I don't need a 10-inch long silencer anyway. I'll go down to 6 baffles instead of 12, and I can stand a little louder silencer. I'll be fine. And is that true? Will you lose some suppression by going from 12 baffles to 6 baffles? Of course you will. Will you reduce some back pressure? Maybe you might reduce some back pressure. But you're not going to reduce back pressure in the time regime of interest. You're not going to reduce early time back pressure at all. Your early time flow rate is going to stay constant because you've done nothing to address how the blast loads interact with the silencer as they enter the silencer at all. And a lot of stuff happens early on. So you're sort of dead in the water with regard to the back pressure here. Okay, now you can tune your rifle, but you're kind of stuck unless you do that. Okay? So now you move to the WRMFZY model. WRMFZY. It's fun to say. Stupid to spell. You move to the WRMFZY model and you think to yourself, okay, well now we're cooking with grease. Here, 3D printing. We can use some more complex geometry, bigger diameter, so we have some larger volumetric expansion to take advantage of. We can reduce the length. Should be interesting. So you look inside the silencer and you see womp womp, womp womp. They actually use the same type of baffle. That's right. Same cones, same ribbing. The only thing they changed is that milled notch. It's no longer milled, it's printed, and it's now oblong, alternating down the stack. So other than the notch geometry and the diameter, it's the same. But shorter. So at the end of the day, they are essentially almost the same silencers in a way. They look different on the outside. They look different. And one is modular. But side by side on the same AR, you're going to really see that as far as signature suppression goes, they're almost identical due to the technology being almost identical. It's not straightforward. It's not intuitive to some of you that this would happen. One thing that happens in silencers like this with high pressure flow is pockets of underexpanded gas. They get localized and trapped in different cavities, and you get less suppression efficiency, and you get high back pressure. Think about that movie theater analogy from way back when, and you're just not sending the flow off axis soon enough, and you're not relieving that stagnation at all. And so that's one of the reasons you get the same performance from both of these silencers. And sure, you're expanding more with the WRMFZY silencer initially, and that does somewhat help suppression, which you do see in the suppression rating slightly goes up, but it's probably not going to move the needle for you as a big difference. It's not going to be a huge differentiator. So if you're looking at one of these silencers to purchase, and you're worried about performance, you should probably just go with the one that has the features you want, and the look you want, and the modularity you want. Because performance-wise, if you compare full-size 556XL to WRMFZY, it's a wash. Now, if you drop the 556XL to the same length of the WRMFZY by removing baffles, well, then how would it do? Well, then the WRMFZY would outperform it, most likely, based on what we know about how this type of technology works. It's not hard to understand. By inspection, you would be able to understand this. This is Mickey Mouse now to you. If you've been following the research, this is Mickey Mouse. This is like rudimentary for you. Okay? All right, let's visualize real hazards in a continuum at a time. In subtopic delta, a hazard map brief 8.1.26 at a time of 31 minutes and 31 seconds. Oh, that's a good omen. Okay, so here you see what I was just telling you. Where's that damn thing? Let me pull it up. Yeah. Okay, where is it? Yeah. 8.1.26. It's public. It's a hazard map brief. It's on our website. There's 2 hazard maps in it. One for the 556XL, one for the WRMFZY. And so you pull these maps up, and you're going to see what I was just telling you in words. You can see it visually, but in pictures. In hazard space, color-coded, with contour lines like a damn map. These maps show you hazards from a bird's eye view, looking down on the shooter, using his or her 14.5-inch M4, AR-15, 5.56 NATO. So you look at these 2 plots. Now, you do see some differences. If you look close, there are some differences in these plots. For example, you can see the hazards are a little more focused and controlled out of the WRMFZY unit, which is a consequence of greater volumetric expansion, despite being shorter. The 556XL, in contrast, it's having blast loads slipping, sliding out of there, and it gets a little more hectic. So that's why you see the 556XL is a little more severe at the muzzle, a little more severe, a little less control. Now you look back toward the shooter, and you see you're almost identical. Ejection port blast is largely the same, but the WRMFZY muzzle blast origin is closer to the shooter since the silencer's shorter, so that drops the operator protection a little bit. Very similar, but you're just a tad closer, so that's why you see that give and take. Really, other than that, guys, what do you see here? Basic overgassed M4 silencer hazards with a hazard field adjacent to the muzzle and forward of the muzzle that, on average, not too shabby. Not too shabby on average. Now, this isn't showing you first round pop. We'll get to that in a moment. But on average, not too shabby. And if you're way off to the side, I think these silencers protect people decently well. Just stay away from that ejection port. You're going to have a bad time there. Now, I will say it's tempting to think that with the suppression ratings at the shooter's ear in these plots hovering around 21 or so, it's tempting to think that these Tuna Cans silencers are competing with some of the more complicated technologies out there that might be scoring similarly at the ear on the M4. It's tempting to think that's similar. With respect to average hazard on this standard gun, sure. Just in a blanket sense. But with back pressure, recoil, gas in the face during rapid fire, gas stack, and other performance traits, not the same sport at all. Be very careful. The conclusions you draw just from the suppression rating. Be very careful. Okay, so while you will certainly be able to tune your gun for these silencers as the manufacturer recommends you do, and what we would recommend you do, I would say when you're thinking about the back pressure and the way these silencers have influenced the guns, I would urge you to think polonium and Saker. I would not urge you to think Huxworks or Dillon. Okay, makes sense. Okay, hope that helps. It's very, very quick and dirty. Okay, let's get a little more technical now. Subtopic echo, the system performance in the full report at a time of 35 minutes and 29 seconds. Okay, so now I'm going to pull up the full report, which is 6.229 on the website. I'm going to pull up the full member version, which has everything in it, no ads in the body, and all the data, all the waveforms measure the operator's head, face, everything. And then you can, if you're not a member, please pull it up if you're a member, but if you're not, you can pull up the free one. And then I'll just, I won't leave you behind. Sorry. Okay. 1 second, guys. Man, it cannot be this early in the week and my voice isn't going. That's not good. Okay. What we'll do is we'll go through the bottom line up front, as we tend to do in these reports. We'll start with the 556 XL, bottom line up front, 40.9. Suppression rating 1 meter left of the end cap of the silencer, 1.6 meters above the ground in the tree-free field, mil standard 1474 echo testing. 21.6. Suppression rating 6 inches right of the shooter's right ear in that same test. For a total composite rating of 41.0 on the standard untuned M4A1 mid-length gas 14.5 inch AR-15 with H2 buffer, standard carbine buffer spring, gas port size 0.76 with buttstock position 4 of 6 on the rifle. All that matters, and that's why I'm telling you. Then we'll move to the WRMFZY version, 3D printed, with a muzzle suppression rating 41.2, ear suppression rating 21.3, and composite of 41.3. So you went up a few tenths of a point at the muzzle, down a few tenths of a point at the ear, up a few tenths of the point at composite. Okay. So at the end of the day, guys and girls, virtually identical. This is like when Mike Goldberg used to do play-by-play commentary for the UFC with Rogan. Remember Mike Goldberg? Brought to you by Corn Nuts, corn to the core. Remember? The fighter's reach, virtually identical. It's like he was known for that meme. But yeah, the suppression ratings and thus the human hazards with these two silencers are like on the M4, virtually identical on average, which is what the suppression rating quantifies. The suppression rating quantifies average human risk the way we've presented it here. And this should give you some comfort, knowing what we just spoke about regarding the technology and the silencers. I mean, are you expanding a bit more with the WRMFZY silencer? Are you expanding more with that blast load ingress? Absolutely. Is it helping suppression? Absolutely. Sure is. How could it have helped more? Well, if they would have used that extra volume differently by rerouting gas off axis to coaxial or annular cavities, or maybe they used their 3D printing to really ramp up surface area with advanced structures. Or maybe they could have done something like Strategic Sciences did that you'll see in the next topic. I mean, there are 100 different ways they could have made the WRMFZY silencer perform way better than the 556 XL. There's 100 different things they could have done. But they just used the same baffle type and made it fatter and shorter. So that's what you get. So scroll down and you can check out figure 1, which is a bar chart. Just to put this in perspective, at a high level on an overgassed M4 rifle, and I keep saying overgassed, and that's not a knock on Daniel Defense or the rifle. But just to tell you, if you were building a suppressed rifle, you would use a smaller gas port than this. You really would. Like whether you're, using an adjustable gas block or a different barrel, you would, if you were using a rifle like this with a silencer, you would reduce your gas port size. I don't care what silencer you use. I wouldn't use a Daniel Defense M4 A1R3 without changing the gas port no matter what silencer. I think it's overgassed. That's just me, just my opinion. Sure, there's a reason they did it, for reliability reasons. So in this figure, we put the top 5 M4 performers next to the 2 Tuna Cans. Tuna Cans are hanging on average with most of the pack, really. Not a huge difference in average human risk here on this rifle. I think that's interesting. I think there's 3 primary conclusions to draw, though. And I think they're right. They're right under the figure, and they're numbered. Maybe we should just go through them. Okay? Because this is important. The first conclusion here, and maybe before that, I should just tell you what the top 5 silencers are on the M4. In order of length, from shortest to longest, Dillon DRC 556, PTR Vent Spiritus 556i, Combat Application Technologies Cat ST, Otter Creek Labs OCM 5, and BOE Suppression Mod 1. Okay, those are the top 5 on the M4. They're tested in the standard. And so when you look at the bar chart here, there's 3 big conclusions that I think you need to know. The first, and again, this is in the report. The first is that even conventional silencer technologies can provide competitive gross signature suppression performance if the design envelopes are large enough. Okay? In some combustion regimes, okay? Or in a lot of combustion regimes. So, for example, that 12 baffle 556 XL, almost 10 inches long, it's able to cross the muzzle suppression rating threshold of 40, despite really primitive tech and only being 1.5 inches in diameter. Why? It has a ton of baffles. High back pressure, ton of baffles. Okay. WRMFZY silencer also crosses 40. Okay. Shorter silencer, we've already been through this. Bigger expansion volume though. Okay. So, even really simple tech can perform really well if it's big enough. That should make sense to you. Now, another note I put in there that was pretty crazy. You look at the Cat ST in there. Well, it's like way ahead of everything else, and it's smaller. It's 1.6 inches diameter, 6.6 inches long. So, if you do have advanced tech, well, you can do some wondrous things in a smaller size. But if you don't have advanced tech, well, you got to go big. Okay, so that's a good conclusion to take away, and I hope you, again, this is super intuitive to a lot of you experienced folks, but to you new folks, you might not understand that. Because some people say, well, if a silencer is big, it's going to beat everything. Well, no, if a silencer is really advanced, it can be smaller and beat everything. You know. Second important high-level conclusion here, the operator protection on an untuned M4 almost always suffers without tuning. This rifle's overgassed, guys. The shooter's ear suppression ratings are always going to be pretty low. Okay? So, even, look at the freaking Spiritus. The Spiritus, which is purposely super high flow rate, only gets 26 at the shooter's ear on this gun. Tune your gun, for the love of God. Lastly, or the third really meaningful conclusion here that's really important, and this is really important, and this is some nuance that goes along with the thing I just told you. Operator protection is not necessarily correlated with gas to the face on an AR. Now, hear me out. The back pressure that you get from a system, from a silencer into a gun, it is very complicated. It has happened in multiple time regimes. It has happened in a continuum. All right. And so when you look at this chart, every single silencer in that chart has varying flow rates. Some of them are going to provide less gas to the face than the other ones. But the suppression ratings on this untuned host might be real close at the ear. Okay. Because the rifle's overgassed, what it's doing is it's reducing the resolution of the suppression rating indicator at the ear with regard to back pressure. Because, of course, there's a correlation between back pressure and shooter's ear suppression rating. Of course, there's a correlation. But as the rifle becomes overgassed, that correlation loses resolution. Okay, that's what that third bullet point says in so many words. Okay, so I think, what else did I say in here that's really important as a corollary to that? Yes, this is important. Nonetheless, as detailed in the raw shooter's ear waveforms measured with both tuna cans in these tests, and as documented in the report, severe back pressure signs are visible. So therefore, those signs that are in the raw data that members can see because they pay us less than a cup of coffee per month to join Pew Science and read extra data as a treat and reward for their support. When you see that, those are supplementary indicators in the analysis. The severe high back pressure indicators in the raw blast data that you see with these tuna cans is very similar to what you're going to see with an OCM5. Okay? Those raw blast pressure back pressure indicators are not present in the BOE Mod 1, the PTR Vent Spiritus, the Cat ST, the Dylan. They're not in there. But yet the suppression ratings are similar at the ear. Why? Because the suppression rating as a back pressure indicator on an overgassed host loses resolution. Okay? It's an indicator. It doesn't mean it's a precise indicator once you get overgassed. Okay? I don't know how many other ways I can say that. Okay? Cool. Now, let's look at some raw blast data. So scroll down to figure 2. Okay? And by the way, just to say about the stuff I just explained to you, those are really important conclusions. And the reason they're written in the report under that figure is because I thought they were important enough to write before we got into the data. They're there before the freaking test results. They're there. I think if you understand those 3 things, you're going to understand our M4 results a lot more, and it's going to help you understand the research way more. Okay? Now, let's look at some raw blast data and put what you learned into practice. So this raw data in figure 2, starting in figure 2, the blast pressure should give you a good window into how the tech works. Very textbook low amplitude blast loads on average, right? But what do you see in the pressure traces specifically? That black curve sure is deviating a lot from the others. Okay. What is that? Severe FRP. There's nothing in these silencers that quenches FRP. It will be a big boom during that first shot. The extra oxidizer from the air in the silencer is helping to string that combustion chain along, and happens freaking early. And you can actually see it start to come out immediately after that first couple of jet. That means immediately after that bullet Mach wave that happens to be coupled with the early blast loads, immediately after that comes out of the silencer, you get extra burning coming out with a big boom, and it's severe. It happens super, super fast. We're talking double the blast pressure during the first shot due to that extra boom. And if you want to see how much momentum that's driving, look at the impulse traces in figure 3. There you're seeing 2.5 times as much momentum. 2.5 times as much momentum? A factor of 2.5 on momentum dump during the first shot? Is that real? Yeah, that's real as a heart attack, and it's severe. And that's one of the reasons I was using the word severe so much in the damn text. I need you folks to know. I need you to understand it. Look how long the FRP momentum is divergent as well. Look how long it's different than the rest of the shots. It's happening through the entire positive phase plateau relative to the other shots. That means it's a really big boom. A lot of air in that silencer to spur on combustion. What do you need for combustion to happen? Air helps. Oxidizer helps. There's a lot of propellant that can keep burning. So now, what if you reduce the number of baffles because it's modular? You say, well, you still have FRP, and it would still be loud. But the FRP would be less loud relatively to the other shots because everything is getting louder, and you're also not giving as much oxidizer because your internal volume has shrunk. And we haven't even tested that with half the baffles, but I can just tell you that because we know how the silencer works, and we have this data, right? Is it a guess? Sure. Is it an educated guess that's probably right? Yes. Now, once FRP is over, oh man, look at this. You're way quieter, aren't you? Absolutely. Now, I think something worth noting here is if you use enough baffles and your charge volume is low enough, your explosive volume is low enough, FRP can be mitigated, even with a very simple design. Let me give you an example. Take the Q full Nelson, okay? And check out research note 2 in the report mentioning that silencer. There's a method to the madness, guys. With the full Nelson on subsonic 300 blackout, there's barely any FRP. There's barely any first round pop, right? Why is that? Well, it's straight cones. Nothing complicated in the full Nelson. Now, they are ported, and there's more of them, and they're bigger. But by and large, same technology as the silencer. By and large, it's really close. It's not the same, but it's pretty close. Why is there such low to non-existent FRP with subsonic 300 blackout with a full Nelson? It's because subsonic 300 blackout is much lower pressure and much lower combustion volume than 5.56. So with that number of baffles, you can handle the FRP. Now make the full Nelson shorter to a half Nelson, and your 300 blackout FRP jumps really high. Same baffle design, just fewer baffles. And the low pressure, small volume subsonic 300 blackout cartridge will give a lot of noticeable FRP. So you move to 5.56, and to get rid of the FRP with a silencer design like this, boy, you'd have to add way more than 12 baffles, wouldn't you? Yeah, you would. Make sense? You would. You have to have way more than 12 baffles. Okay? This is very simple. It's very simple to understand because the technology is simple. Okay? The more simple the technology, the more you can really dissect it and learn a lot. Okay, we've learned so much over the years. That's why I was so excited about this report. People didn't understand. That's okay. Because, see, people forget. A lot of people harp on us because they want us to test all these silencers that people are marketing a lot, as if they think this is the point of this effort is to sell silencers. No, it's not to sell silencers. It's to learn how they work, you see. So then you can make the decisions by yourself. Okay. So now, members, look at the shooter's ear data, please, and you scroll down. And for the rest of you, let me just walk you through it just so you understand, since you can't see it. The thing here that's really important to understand that I already explained to you, but I'm going to explain again because it's good to explain things multiple times so you get it. The suppression rating is low 20s. Sure, okay. And that can happen on the M4 with even some pretty high performance stuff, I promise. But if you see things like what you see in figure 5 at the ear, you know you're dealing with extreme ejection port blast, and that's really, really bad. That is what a polonium or a Saker or an original AAC M4 2000, all that stuff does what you see in figure 5 with the Tuna Can. So be aware. Tune your guns, shrink the gas port. It will help you a lot by keeping that chamber closed longer. It will drop the chamber pressure further down the curve, further down the blowdown curve before things open and get all crazy, which is what you're seeing in figure 5. Ejection port blast dominance that cause the impulse accumulation to not drop out of the positive phase fast enough. It's just a physics indicator, guys. That's all it is. Anyone can do this with the test silencers. We've taught you how to do this in the Silencer Sound Standard 6 years ago. So if people aren't doing this, then it's because they don't want to do it. It's not because they don't know how. Okay? So you can do all this again. You can repeat the same exercise we just went through together with the WRMFZY. Scroll down in the report, it just repeats. It just repeats, guys. The only real difference here between, like we've said, the only really difference between the 5.56 XL and the WRMFZY 5.56 12 baffle configuration is that you get a little bit lower back pressure with a WRMFZY and a little more blast control. And that's what that extra volume early on in expansion is buying you with this type of baffle design. Slightly lower back pressure and slightly more blast momentum control. That's it, dude. That is literally it. Well, and I guess it also allows you to have a shorter silencer. Okay. So you get the same performance in a shorter silencer because you have more expansion volume. But you don't have modularity, so you lose that. So those are the trade-offs. Couldn't be more simple, right? Couldn't be more simple. Isn't that cool? Yeah. Isn't that cool? That's what a real case study does. When you isolate variables, you keep the technology the same, but you change envelope. You just learned something about how silencers work. Now, don't go try to extrapolate it across text. Now you might see another silencer. Oh, well, it's the same size as the warm fuzzy silencer, so it's going to do the same thing. No. That's not true. If you don't change too many variables or you'd be off the reservation. All right? No, what you're learning is basic experimental design and basic experimental controls. You're learning scientific method, but we're tricking you. We're tricking you into learning physics. It's really cool, right? Okay, so let me give you some overall thoughts in subtopic Foxtrot at a time of 55 minutes and 44 seconds. Okay, very good. This is great. We're making fantastic time today. Maybe it's because it's Monday for me. Okay, overall thoughts for these warm fuzzy and tuna things. For the 556 XL and WRMFZY tuna cans. Overall, I would say, to sum it up, these are brute force, simple silencers that will suppress competitively with regard to full-size silencers in a pure sense. They will have noticeable FRP. They will have high back pressure. If you're going to mag dump into trash, or if you're going to run some 556 bolt guns or something, and you just need something cheap that works, and you don't care about FRP or back pressure, dude, these could be for you. I mean, I don't know. They're not that expensive. And that's a good thing to be able to know. Your expectations of these silencers should basically be, they're kind of like poloniums that are probably not as durable and way bigger. That's kind of a good analogy using the current tech, I would say. A lot bigger, heavier, worse FRP poloniums that aren't as durable. And they're cheap. And one is modular. That's it. That's all she wrote. That is literally what these silencers are. Big thanks to Tuna Cans for trusting us to do all this. I know they wanted folks to see these, and we obviously took this as an opportunity to educate, as we do with all of our reports. And we are thankful to have the opportunity, and I hope all of you listening are also thankful. So if you see Tuna Cans, give them a high five and maybe a can of tuna. I don't know if they like tuna or not. They probably do. You know, brute force suppression with simple baffles is certainly not going away, because at the end of the day, it does reduce the severity of blast loads, no doubt, and that's good. It's always good. I'd much rather have a tuna can on a gun than no can on the gun. Now, you got to ask yourself, if you had your perfect world, what would you have a rifle silencer do for you? Don't say make your breakfast, because everyone wants that. Well, why don't we shift gears completely and now talk about a line of silencers that really tries to answer the question of, if you had your druthers, what would you have a silencer do? I think this silencer answers the question in the most clinically insane way possible at a time of 58 minutes and 17 seconds. Okay, topic 2, Sound Signature Review 6230, the Strategic Sciences multifunction muzzle device plus suppressor device extended on the 20-inch through bolt action. This is one of the most interesting silencer systems we've evaluated in the research to date in all of my years, I think. The multifunction muzzle device, like all silencers, it suppresses recoil and flash and blast. How does the MFMD compare with other things on the market? Are reflex designs making a comeback? Would this silencer make your breakfast? This is an introductory discussion. We're publishing this report in the morning. Today for you, tomorrow for me. You know, when these first burst on the scene in military trials, I had a feeling I knew who was behind this. I had a hankering. No, I had an inkling. Hankering? No, not a hankering. I had an inkling. And sure enough, good old Russ Oliver, the creator of flow-through technology, the creator of OSS, now called HuxWorks. Russ has some really big ideas. You know, he should do a TED Talk, that guy. In concept, His ideas make a lot of sense. They do. It is executing them that is the important part. And one thing that sets Russ apart, and this is my personal opinion, one thing that sets Russ apart from some other people is that he does execute. And he has proven that over the decades. Strategic Sciences created this product for military use, plain and simple. No ifs, ands, or buts there. They approached our laboratory to do an evaluation, and I'm very honored they did. They have had several U.S. government laboratories evaluate their system. So to have a consumer-facing laboratory do it too, so you guys get to actually see the test reports, which is the whole point of Pew Science, written in our website from the beginning, I think that's cool. So I just want to say up front, hats off to Strategic Sciences and Russ personally for trusting us to do this. I really hope we did this justice. We have actually evaluated 2 different systems for Strategic Sciences here at Pew Science. We have evaluated a 762 system and a 556 system, and we have evaluated the multifunction muzzle device, or MFMD, by itself, and also with the SDX module installed, or the suppressor device extended installed. We are also in possession of the SD modules, the modules that are a little bit shorter than the SDX modules. So we've done multiple test programs on this, and today you're seeing something. You're going to see more. Just FYI, it's kind of a slow burn here. It's going to burn hot and slow. It's an extreme burn that's slow. There's a lot of fuel. I think it's important to note. It's probably important. Yeah, let's just say this. It's important to look at some big picture thoughts about the system first, before we get into it in a deep way. And before you read the report, I think it's important to look at this in a big picture. You're going to see this when you read the report, because I put a lot of stuff up front in there in the technical talk, or technical discussion in the report. I really wanted you to learn something today. I think it's going to be really cool. But I'm going to say a few things now for you. 1, these things are designed for military. 2, the design goals for this system and project, they involve size, recoil reduction, flash reduction, blast load propagation reduction, back pressure reduction. Durability is a really huge design goal here. You can use these on belt feds. These are Inconel, dude. Like, these are not they're heavy, and they're heavy for a reason. And finally, there are about 10 million models. That's right, dude. They make these things for each weapon system specifically. The chances are, if you have a gun, there's one of these free. Not a rimfire, but if you have a military firearm, there's a Strategic Sciences multifunction muzzle device for your gun. Like, I've seen them. The specific evaluation we're presenting to you today, for you, tomorrow for me, is 0700 U.S. Central Time, is of the 762-3.0. It's the over-the-barrel variant with the SDX 2.0-5.9. That module installed on a 20-inch 308 bolt-action rifle. So this is a 762 reflex MFMD with a big extension. 308 bolt gun with a ton of comparison points. You're going to get the MFMD by itself on this gun later, and you will get the 5.56 version on the M4 later in both configs. But today you're just getting 7.62 full config. Now then, let me just say, in all of my years, even before Pew Science, I have never seen a silencer like this, and I have never seen a silencer do what the silencer does in the way it does it. And over the years, I've used the phrase alien technology to describe some silencers, and I stand by that. I say them in jest. I mean, I'm playfully calling things alien tech because I'm just having fun. Like, when we find advanced technology in the research, I'm like, oh, that's alien. Because it's fun to say, and we get excited about tech, right? With the MFMD, I'm going to say, yeah, dude, this is alien. This is just so, and it's just so different in operation principle. When you see the inside of it, it really makes you appreciate how they did it. And another thing I want to say is, man, I'm so happy 3D printing exists. Like, I think that this technology now included in the silencer sound standard is pivotal. I think this is pivotal. It's really important that we understand how it works and why you would want it to work the way it works. So we're going to explore that, today in the report, and we're going to explore it further on the technical deep dive next week for everybody. And now when you see the suppression rate, let's get to I haven't even talked about that yet. When you see the suppression ratings of this thing, you're going to see very high numbers. And that, because it's true, because this thing's quiet as hell. The interesting part is that it's actually one of it. The fact that it's quiet as hell is only one of the cool parts about the system, which is neat. And I did start this off by saying size, recoil, flash, blast loads, durability. The cool thing is that several of these performance factors, and whether or not they achieved those performance goals with their product in this program, they're evident in our test data. Our test data captured them. And so when you see the report, you're going to see the suppression ratings, you're going to see the hazard map. I want you to pay particular attention to just how dangerous or not dangerous the field is in various locations. This is one of those systems that makes the actual bolt gun start to matter with regard to signature. That's how quiet it is. Look at the hazard map graphic and look how long the silencer looks. It looks long, doesn't it? Well, the barrel might look short. It's weird. It's because this is a reflex silencer and it's fitting a full 3 inches back over the barrel. Direct thread to that barrel. The muzzle device module alone is a little over 7.5 inches long, but when you put it on the gun, it only goes like 4.5 inches past the barrel shoulder. And guys, this is a 30 cal system. The 5.56 system's smaller. So now you add the SDX, which is what you're going to see in this report. You end up with a 10.7 inch long system, but it drops down to 7.7 inches long past the barrel shoulder. So you are effectively almost 2.5 inches shorter than a 9 inch ultra high performance silencer in the standard like the PTR Vent 1. You're 2.5 inches shorter than a Vent 1 on your gun with this. Think about it. So why is that important? Why is that comparison like that important besides the fact that it's an important comparison? Because that was the top performer. Spoiler alert. It's important because this is the first time that reflex silencers have been tested by our lab and actually shine to the point of outperforming other stuff for the added length. This is the quietest 308 system we've ever tested. It's going to be tough to beat this for the added length because it's beating literally everything regardless of length. When you consider length past the barrel shoulder, it's a different sport entirely, to the point that you probably just won't beat it with the other current tech that we know of. Unless maybe Stealth Additive Works has something up their sleeves we don't know about. Like the guys making the T-shirt. Maybe they have something we don't know about. But right now, no, I don't think so. I'm talking pure suppression. Now, moving on from pure performance, you also got to consider the recoil reduction here too. Now, we know from 2 primary indicators that recoil reduction is going to be significant. We know this. For one, all in, this thing weighs 41.7 ounces, so you got 2.5 pounds on the end of your gun. So that's going to help recoil due to physics. Trust. Another thing, though, is that the omega metric places it in zone 6. That, that's pretty cool. So that's going to help with recoil due to that thrust reduction. But get this, it has a really high early time flow rate, really low early time back pressure. The plot thickens. So remember when we spoke about the 4 systems Predator 6.5 a couple weeks back, and they even echoed our technical description of the silencer performance in their marketing when they tell you high early time flow rate controlled or low late time flow rate? Yeah, the Predator 6.5 does do that. That's true. The MFMD does it on steroids. Not normal, dude. So you're lowering recoil with less blast load thrust out of the end of the silencer, but you still have really low back pressure and you're still super quiet. So when you put this Strategic Sciences thing on a reciprocating system like an AR, you have super low back pressure, which is really good for the weapon and really good for reducing ejection port blast, yet you're suppressing to ungodly levels at the muzzle. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Add to the fact that it's 2.5 pounds, it's going to make your rifle pretty soft shooting there, no matter if it's a bolt gun or an AR, doesn't matter. Now, that's a qualitative statement, but it's backed by every single piece of data in our tests, so we see nothing to contradict it. Speaking of tests, one second. Speaking of tests, I'm going to pull this up right now. I got the draft in front of me. We're going to go through this next week, but holy crap. You watch the momentum curves as they develop. The consistency is significant here, guys. And the blowdown time isn't even that long. And that's weird. It kind of makes you wonder how they're able to do it, right? It's almost like they're letting gas expansion through the system quickly, but they have enough expansion to do the most work possible as they do it. Could it be they're taking advantage of the envelope they picked? Oh my God. They took advantage of 3D printing. Oh no, people are using 3D printing to their advantage. Oh yeah. Remember when we first saw 3D printing silencers with the Daniel Defense Wave? You remember that? What a waste. This is like the polar opposite of that. Now, some people are going to rant and rave about the weight of this thing. But right now, what I think I just found personally, this is my personal opinion. I think what I just found personally is something I would love to put on a machine gun, like huge thermal mass, low back pressure, incredible suppression. Only catch here is like the ones we have in the lab are reflex. Now they do make flush mounted versions of these things. They actually make one for the Mark 18. So yeah, I'm gonna need to try that. I haven't tried it. Heard it's cool. If you look, and just as an aside, if you think ultralight silencers are as durable as heavy silencers on belt feds or any machine gun, I hope you have deep pockets. Because you should, if you're shooting that much ammo anyway, you should have deep pockets. So, what's really weird to me? Why someone that is interested in using a machine gun or a force reset trigger, an FRT, why those people would be interested in buying a budget silencer? Why on earth, if you want a mag dump full auto, would you want to buy a budget silencer? You're just going to spend more than the silencer in a weekend shooting if you're actually shooting it like that. So it's actually nonsensical. It's actually nonsensical for someone to want something that's full auto rated, quote unquote, which doesn't exist. It's nonsensical for them, that person to want the silencer to cost $500 or something. Doesn't make sense. Because those two goals don't align. If you actually wanted something full auto rated, you shouldn't care what it costs because you're going to spend more on ammo anyway. Do you know how much ammo costs? Unless, of course, you work for an ammunition company and you get free ammunition. Well, then you're a special case, but I guarantee you're the outlier, right? And this is really nuts. If you can do this at home, Google a cutaway of this thing. I don't think they're supposed to have it out there. Somehow that someone leaked it, but it's out there. You're going to see what I'm talking about. If you're familiar with the physics of gun barrels and muzzle blast, and you can certainly learn, I have some references I would be glad to share with you. There's a lot of literature out there to learn from many decades of research. You learn that stuff, and then you look at the inside of the silencer and how they chose to tackle the problem. You will see that they are not fighting the blast loads in muzzle blast and gas slug. They are working with it. And that is the ballet that I am so pleased to see a designer do. When I saw the inside of this thing, I said, thank God, let's see what this does. I hope it does what I think it does. And sure enough, it does do what I think it does. And I wouldn't have believed it unless I tested it myself. I consider us pretty lucky, actually. I consider myself personally very fortunate to have the opportunity to evaluate this system, and Strategic Sciences trusted us to do it, which is really cool. They trusted us just to do it, just like our other clients trust us, and they did not tell us what to write. And they have no control over what we wrote, and just like all of our other clients and everyone else. So I just want to make sure you all know that. You'll see in the report that I do have some very strong statements. Like one is that I say that all silencers achieve the goals of flash suppression, blast overpressure suppression, and recoil suppression. They all do that. Now, doing them very well all together and with low back pressure and doing it in a short length, well, That's the trick. That's the holy grail, right? So this brings us one step closer. Certainly does. I think, and I will say also something that's important. I think us having tested the 5.56 version of the on the M4, it really made this 308 bolt gun study even better because it gave us tremendous context with all the tests. It really allowed us to look at the full picture of everything, and I can't wait to show you more and what this thing's doing. It's really crazy. And I'm going to say something else, just so you guys know, just for the record. So Russ Oliver created OSS. You know, we were the first independent lab to evaluate OSS silencers on our own, with internal funding as a research project. Early listeners to the podcast will listen to my skepticism about them working at all. Then we tested them. We figured out they actually did work if you had high enough pressure flow. It was really cool. They ended up seeing that research, and then when they became Huxworks, they actually hired us to do. They commissioned us and they became a lab client, and we visited their lab. We compared notes, and that's when you saw the Huxworks flow stuff from us. But we were testing the OSS stuff independently, but before we were before they were a client, and then they became a client because we were one of the only people or only groups of people that could characterize the stuff and give it the credit where credit is due, with real engineering analysis and real test data. And now Russ is doing this, and now they hired our lab to do this testing. I think that's come full circle. Isn't that crazy? I think that's such a success story for the industry. You guys have funded this to the point where now we get to do two of his brain children. So thank you to Strategic Sciences and Russ personally. Thank you for trusting us to perform this work. Thank you to all of our member supporters for making this possible to even happen. We did this OSS stuff before they even knew who we were, and now we're doing this stuff, and they do know who we are. So how about them apples? All right, man, we're all going to learn something. I'm so glad we get this to you guys. I'm so excited. Can't wait for you to see the semi-auto stuff too. All right, 0700 Central, be there. Be square. Stay safe. Be good. Have a great 4th of July. I will talk with you folks again soon. Okay, bye.